Welcome back to the Critics Corner. I'm Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun, and I'm here with David Dunn with Southlake magazine. How's it going, man?
It's going very well. Yeah, going very well. Obviously, I'm back with my movie figurines, my Marvel figurines. So I guess you can presume what we're talking about this week.
You have figurines.
Hey, don't knock them. They're amazing.
The modern nerd's equivalent to action figures.
Absolutely. You don't have to grow up. Not always.
That's true. That's very true. Well, we've got a strange review for you guys today. Literally a strange review. Benedict Cumberbatch is back into the big screen in one of his well-known roles as Dr. Stephen Strange in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, right?
Yes, sir. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is a movie that has gone through a lot of different phases. Originally, the director of the first movie, Scott Derrickson, was supposed to return. He was hailing this as Marvel's first horror movie. He ended up leaving the project because Marvel didn't want to go as dark as he wanted to. So instead, they hired Sam Raimi in his place, the director who obviously brought us Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 1 and 2, which I still think is the best on-screen adaptation of Spider-Man to date. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness features everyone's favorite marveling wizard. Well after the events of Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man No Way Home, all those things. And in this story, he comes into contact with a 13-year-old girl named America Chavez, who has the ability to travel dimensions, travel the multiverse. Literally, she can go anywhere from the prehistoric age to a green Earth utopia to a geometrical kind of world to literally an animated world. Anything you can think of, she's gone to. And there are these multiversal monsters coming after her. Doctor Strange has to defend her to defend the multiverse. And you have our movie, this massive multiversal adventure that really, I think, could be an Avengers movie, but they just decided to make it a Doctor Strange movie. So,
well, I've got to ask: Did Doctor Strange make America great again?
Bye, everybody. And no, I will say though, I do think it's funny her name's America Chavez, because there's a scene where Doctor Strange is like, "Is America okay?" And I'm sitting there and I'm like, "No, America's not okay."
I kind of thought that in the theater.
Not the nation. Okay, then yeah, I'm sure she's fine.
This was definitely a different movie for me. I wasn't really I didn't read a lot of Doctor Strange growing up. I've seen mostly him from the movies. So it was definitely different, but it was okay. It's not my favorite adaptation of the character, in this film, but it was definitely different. You could see Sam Raimi's horror kind of influence on there. I mean, he's the one that brought you Bruce Campbell's main character to like in the Army of Darkness franchise.
And this is my boomstick.
Shop smart, shop S-smart. And what's great is just seeing Bruce Campbell on screen. I mean, in all the Spider-Man movies, I think almost all of them, Bruce had a small cameo in them, when Raimi directed it. I thought that was fantastic. And I love the small role that they gave him here, which was small but very memorable. And, you have to, spoiler alert, you have to watch till the end where they have another sequence. It kind of, if you know Sam Raimi and you know about Army of Darkness and the other movies associated with that, there's kind of a funny tie-in to those movies, you know.
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of Sam Raimi accents throughout this whole movie, and for me, that was the best part of it. When the horror elements shone through, whenever the Evil Dead or Drag Me to Hell inspirations kind of shone through, that was when the movie's at its strongest. I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is dark, gritty, a little grotesque. I'm kind of digging this, and I'm impressed. Marvel let Sam Raimi get away with some scenes in this movie. There's so many moments where if you had told me 10 years ago that there would be scenes like these in a Marvel movie, I wouldn't believe you. But here it is in Doctor Strange. Literally, man, what doesn't happen in this movie? Necks get snapped, bodies get dismembered. There's one guy who has his brain implodes from inside his head.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bad acid trip.
It literally is. And when those scenes shine through, there's like corpses being reanimated and going these weird, quick, twisted poses. It felt like a Tim Burton movie a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
It was really, really stylistic and cool. I really love those scenes where those darker, more grotesque, more disturbing moments kind of shine through. It shows the potential for different directions the Marvel Cinematic Universe can go. And if Disney's brave enough to go in those directions, I think they should continue to tap into that. I'm really curious to see what a really well fleshed out horror movie would look like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
yeah, I don't know if the House of Mouse is ready to go full horror yet, though. Oh, I don't know if we should do this, Goofy. Oh.
This is really scary. Yeah, I hear you. But at the very least, some of those elements shining through, I thought was really cool. I also liked a lot of the Easter eggs. I'm not getting into spoiler territory with this, but there are a lot of really, really exciting cameos in this movie. I saw on Twitter people were complaining there weren't enough cameos in the movie. I completely disagreed with that. There was a lot of surprise characters that showed up in this film, especially many actually getting their MCU debut in this movie. So getting to experience that, getting to experience the shock and surprise of that, oh my God, seeing these characters on screen, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or multiverse, I guess, that was really cool too. And I loved experiencing those fan service moments in the film when those showed up.
I will say overall, it was a good film. It was different. I'm not a huge horror fan. It has to be, it can't be like one of those slasher movies where it just doesn't have a point. And honestly, Sam Raimi does a good job of kind of balancing the grossness of the violence mixed with plot. And he's done a good job with that over the years and in a number of his movies. And I think there was a good, healthy balance between horror and Marvel. So yeah. He didn't go too over the top with it, but put enough in there just to keep the audience guessing to where he was going to go next.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. As far as the horror tones, the thriller tones, the supernatural elements, the Sam Raimi style, I thought all that worked very, very well. Although I will say, there was one fight scene that was straight up dumb with a capital D-U-M-B. And it was where these two sorcerers were literally pulling music notes out of a sheet of music and throwing them at each other like darts. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that was kind of lame.
When did this become Fantasia, right? Like when did
we have to put that in.
Exactly. Dumb. That was dumb. But outside of the visuals, outside of the stylistic appeal, outside of Sam Raimi's artistic direction, I gotta say, from a story standpoint, the movie really, really falls flat on its face. Specifically with how it portrayed one character. And spoiler alert, for those that haven't seen the movie or don't want to know who the main villain is or nothing like that.
Turn off the review right now.
I really, really had a big problem with how the movie portrayed Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch, as the main villain. And this is why. For those of you that haven't seen WandaVision, spoiler alert for WandaVision, that show ends with her. She starts off enslaving a whole town to live out this fantasy, right? This family fantasy where Vision's alive, they're married, and they have 2 children together. And the show ends with her realizing it's wrong. She was wrong to have her grief spill over on others, control an entire town. She resolves to eventually free the town and give up her perfect reality of her family forever, right? Well, that's how WandaVision ends. Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness begins with her saying, you know what? I do want my fake children after all, my fake children I conjured using magic. And I'm going to kill every single person imaginable. Anybody that stops me from accessing my fake children from another multiverse. She literally, I'm not even kidding. She literally goes up to Carmitage. She literally scorches sorcerers. She dismembers them limb by limb. She blows them up. She puts people through horrifyingly gruesome deaths. And I'm looking at all this, I'm like, this is an entirely different Scarlet Witch than what we got in the last movie. In WandaVision, she acknowledged her actions and how wrong they were and decided, hey, I'm going to process my grief in a healthy way. I'm going to not be the villain everybody think I'm going to become.
It basically made WandaVision a moot point.
Exactly. Like, it was a complete betrayal to her character. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, I know the writer for Loki wrote this movie. Did he not pay attention to WandaVision at all? Did he just look at what happened to the show? He's like, that's a good resolution, but it has nothing to do with my movie. I'm just going to keep going where I am. And then that sent me down an even further spiral, which is, if you went straight into this movie from Avengers Endgame, you didn't even watch WandaVision, you just jumped straight in from Avengers Endgame, her transformation is even more polarizing. It makes even less sense than it did if you watch WandaVision.
Yeah, so, it really doesn't follow the canon whatsoever at all.
It doesn't. You look at it like, how? That's what bugs me about this movie. It doesn't bug me that Marvel decided, oh, the really grotesque horror stuff, yeah, we'll give you a pass on that. But the fact they gave a pass on this complete betrayal of her character, it's like watching Spider-Man go from Homecoming and Far From Home, being this adorable, lovable little kid, opening him up on No Way Home, where he's just straight up murdering people because his secret identity was leaked. Like, it's not his character.
Well, it's like, in another realm of nerdiness, it's kind of like what Star Trek Discovery has done to the rest of the Star Trek series. Oh yeah, we're gonna forget all this stuff that William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy did, and Patrick Stewart, and all these other people beforehand did, and laid a great foundation for a series. But hey, nah.
It's completely disrespectful to the canon up until this point. And while yes, there are amazing moments with Elizabeth Olsen in this movie where she comes to terms with her grief and her loss, and acknowledging everything that's led her up to this point, it's also highly, highly redundant. We've already seen this arc in WandaVision, and they basically undid that arc to force her to be the villain in this movie. And then they're like, hey, let's have her go through the whole arc all over again with no payoff and no resolution at the end. It fell flat on its face in terms of the villain. And
to me, it felt like a 2 hour and 6 minute worth 2 hour and 6 minute waste of time.
Yeah,
to a point. Like, I've seen this. What else do you got?
Exactly. And it's not just the fact that Wanda her story was very redundant, her arc was very redundant, and she ends the movie in the same place where she ended in WandaVision. It's also Doctor Strange doesn't experience any change either. He begins the movie feeling unhappy and unfulfilled and unsatisfied, and he ends the movie the same way. So you're like, what was the point of all that? Ugh. Yeah, I don't know. In terms of the visual style, I love the visuals. I love Sam Raimi's accents. I really love technically everything this movie achieves, but from a screenwriting standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, from a character-based standpoint, this is the most disappointing movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
And it's very odd that I'm saying that when the Eternals, Ant-Man, Iron Man 2, and Thor the Dark World all exist out there. In terms of all of those movies, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is, from a story standpoint, the most disappointing. And I'm flabbergasted that that happened.
Yeah. But wait, we might get more disappointment with the new Thor movie coming out. Thor: Love and Thunder. So
hey, excuse you. I want to see Jane Foster. I want to see a female Thor, or I guess new.
I do that.
Check out those goods, like, right?
You're too easy sometimes.
Hey, I'm excited, man. I'm looking forward.
I'll go see it. I mean, I like Thor. He's cool.
Yeah.
So, well, I can't blame Sam Raimi for a crappy script, or that's not his fault. I thought with what he was given, he did a decent job with it. Yeah. So, comes that time to give a score for this. So 1 out of 10. What's your rating?
Very, very, very split between a 5 and a 6. So we're gonna go. You know what? I'll go with 6. I do love Sam Raimi's visual style. He was a good choice for this movie. His horror elements really shone through. And when the movie is in horror movie mode, it works very, very well. It's shocking, it's grisly, it's dark. It really makes you uncomfortable. And that's what you needed to get out of this movie. So I appreciate those elements being in there. But from the story standpoint, from not taking the characters seriously, from not treating them faithfully, to completely disregarding everything else that happened up until this point, yeah, it's a 6.
I give it a 6.5, 7. So, yeah, it's like one of those movies that you watch in the theater and you're just kind of looking at your wrist at your watch and saying, you know, when is this going to be done? When is this going to be over? When can I go home? And, you know, I mean, the best way to do a superhero movie is have a plot that's simple, direct, and there aren't all these rabbits that you have to chase around. I mean, that's the best. And that same can be said for action movies. I mean, you don't see Sylvester Stallone as Rambo ranting on about unrequited love or something in it. You know, I mean, it doesn't really work for his character. And there are a lot of those rabbit chasing moments in this movie, and this I was expecting a lot more because it was hyped up so much.
Dr. Strange's last cinematic appearance was literally Spider-Man No Way Home, and this is his follow-up.
Yeah,
very, very disappointing.
It's almost as bad as Topher Grace in the Spider-Man movie.
Okay, I don't think I'd go that far.
Not that far. That's too extreme.
That's still very, very bad. That's still, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this week edition of the Critics Corner. So if you have any thoughts, suggestions, or comments, or just want to chat movies with us, please hit us up on Facebook, give us a like, and we'll see you guys next week at the cinema.
See y'all at the cinema, guys.